Hey class, welcome back. And today we are talking about Benedict Arnold. We're talking about his biography, going a little bit about him. We talked a little bit about him when we talked about Fort Ticonderoga. Now we're going to really get into Benedict Arnold because our next lesson will be on spies, and he was a major spy in the American Revolution. He at one point was going to hand over the fort to Major Andre. He switched sides. He was on the Continental Army, and then he was a spy for the British at the same time. And it was all about money. All right, all about money, fame, and position for him anyway. So that's who we're talking about today, Benedict Arnold. All right. Early career, business career, he was an apothecary and a bookseller, and he was a hard worker. Became a successful merchant. Uh, began to branch out, investing in a trading company with partner Adam Babcock. And when the British imposed the Stamp Act on the colonies, Arnold became a patriot and he joined the Sons of Liberty. All right, so this is how he started out. He started out as against the British, but he eventually wound up spying for the British, and it all came down to money, power, position, things he didn't feel like he was getting with the colonial army.
Benedict Arnold. Early career. Arnold began his business career as an apothecary and bookseller. He was a hard worker and became a successful merchant. He began to branch out, investing in a trade company with partner Adam Babcock. When the British imposed the Stamp Act tax on the colonies, Arnold became a patriot and joined the Sons of Liberty.
All right. So at the start of the Revolutionary War, he was elected as a captain of the Connecticut militia. And he led the militia north of Boston after the battles of Lexington and Concord to help with the siege of Boston. And one thing he did, he received a colonel's commission to attack Fort Ticonderoga. And we've talked about Fort Ticonderoga together with Ethan Allen, and the Green Mountain Boys. And they took Fort Ticonderoga, and it was one of the first major victories for the colonies in the American Revolutionary War.
The Revolutionary War begins. At the start of the Revolutionary War, Arnold was elected as captain of the Connecticut militia. He led the militia north to Boston after the battles of Lexington and Concord to help with the siege of Boston. He then received a colonel's commission to attack Fort Ticonderoga. Together with Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys, he took Ticonderoga in one of the first major victories for the colonies.
All right. So Arnold, he then joined the Continental Army. He was just a militia and receiving colonel's commission for the Ticonderoga. Then he joined the Continental Army, and it was under George Washington. And George really, really liked Arnold. Okay, which later he would regret because he did. But as a colonel, he led an attack on Quebec City, and the Americans lost the battle. And Arnold was wounded in the leg, but he was promoted to brigadier general after this because he showed bravery, and he's moving up the ranks as he wanted at this point.
The Continental Army. Arnold then joined the Continental Army under George Washington. As a colonel, he led an attack on Quebec City. The Americans lost the battle and Arnold was wounded in the leg. However, Arnold was promoted to brigadier general.
All right. So Arnold was angry when Congress did not promote him to major general, though. He moved up to brigadier general, but he's mad. You didn't promote me to major general. I should be major general. I've done a lot for this. I've done this. I deserve all this. So I'm just gonna resign. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna turn in my notice and I'm leaving. I'm leaving. But George Washington, who I said liked him a lot. George would not let him leave. He wouldn't. He considered Arnold one of his best generals, and he was soon moved to the rank of major general as he wanted. So, like I said, I think George Washington regretted not letting him leave after he turned spy, and you'll see what I mean here in just a few minutes.
Arnold was angry when Congress did not promote him to major general. He tried to resign from the army, but George Washington would not let him. Washington considered Arnold one of his better generals. Soon, Arnold was promoted to the rank of major general.
All right. So the Battle of Saratoga, it was the Battle of Saratoga that Arnold he became an American hero somewhat, because he led an attack on the British. He got his leg wounded again. When he returned to the army at Valley Forge, the soldiers welcomed him as a hero because he had been wounded in battle, and they said he did really good in the battle at the Battle of Saratoga.
It was at the Battle of Saratoga that Arnold became somewhat of an American hero. He bravely led the attack on the British, wounding his leg again. When he returned to the army at Valley Forge, the soldiers welcomed him as a hero.
All right, so making enemies. Although they looked at him as a hero after Saratoga, he made a lot of enemies within the Continental Army and within Congress. He is often accused of being greedy, which I said he wanted money, okay? He used his power to make money for himself, and other generals, such as Horatio Gates, all right, down here, they didn't like Arnold at all, all right? Arnold even came under a military court-martial at one point in his career, and he got out of it, but he did go in under a military court-martial.
Making enemies. Arnold made enemies within the Continental Army and Congress. He was often accused of being greedy and using his power to make money for himself. Other generals like Horatio Gates did not like Arnold at all. Arnold even came under military court-martial at one point.
All right, so becoming a spy. In 1779, this was about 4 years after the war began, Arnold began to sell secrets to the British. Anything that he knew about, he'd sell secrets to them. Secret correspondence passed between him and Major Andre. This is Major Andre right here that you see in the picture. The British spy chief, and they used Benedict's wife, Peggy, to pass letters written in code and invisible ink amongst each other. So Arnold passed the British all sorts of information: supply depots, troop movements, number of troops. And in 1780, he became the commander of at Fort West Point. All right, and he agreed. He told Arnold, or told Major Andre, "Hey, I agree. I will surrender this fort to y'all. I will put everything in place. I'll surrender it for 20,000 British pounds. All right." I'll surrender it for 20,000 British pounds. Well, he never saw that money, but and I'll get to you back to that in just a few minutes either.
Becoming a spy. In 1779, Arnold began to sell secrets to the British. Secret correspondence passed between him and Major Andre, the British spy chief. They used Benedict's wife, Peggy, to pass letters written in code and in invisible ink. Arnold passed British all sorts of important information, including the locations of supply depots, troop movements, and a number of troops. In 1780, Arnold became the commander of the fort at West Point. Arnold agreed to surrender the fort to the British for 20,000 pounds.
He never saw that money, however, because they didn't really intend that. None of them liked him either. Okay, the British didn't even like him. All right, but they weren't going to pay him. I think he saw like maybe 5,000 of the 20,000 pounds, if he saw that much of it. But Arnold, he met with Major Andre to discuss the takeover of West Point, and he had been reducing the defenses to the fort to make it easy for the British to capture. So after a few days after their meeting, Major Andre, this guy right here, all right, he was captured by the Americans after he left from there. He had papers on him revealing Arnold's plot to surrender West Point, and they took him in. All right, they were going to hang him as a traitor. Arnold heard about this. Arnold left. All right, he was able to escape to the British, to the side where they made him into a general or something, I believe. Hold on, you have to let me look and see. But it was not the same because they didn't trust him either. All right, if you're going to betray your own country and your own side and come over here, why should we trust you too? Why would we trust you? They didn't look at him with the same respect. Although he won some battles and stuff for them, they just didn't look at him as respectful as you would think they would, and it's because they didn't trust him either.
He's a spy. Arnold met with Major Andre to discuss the takeover of West Point. He had systematically been reducing the defenses of the fort to make it easy for the British to capture. However, a few days after their meeting, Major Andre was captured by the Americans. He had papers on him revealing Arnold's plot to surrender West Point. Arnold heard about Andre's capture and was able to escape the British.
All right. So after changing sides, Arnold became the general for the British. He led attacks against the Americans at Richmond and New London, but he was never treated as an equal in the British Army because they did not trust him. Like I said, they just did not trust him at all, and I can understand why. Somebody switches sides in the middle of a war. Why should you trust them too? I can understand that completely.
Commanding the British. After changing sides, Arnold became a general for the British. He led attacks against Americans at Richmond and New London.
All right. So what group did Benedict Arnold join after the Stamp Act was imposed? Was it A, the Sons of Liberty, B, the Green Mountain Boys, or C, the Lions Club? It was A, the Sons of Liberty.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 2, what fort did Arnold help capture? Was it A, Fort Bragg, B, Fort Ticonderoga, or C, Mr. Sean's fort? It was B, Fort Ticonderoga. Fort Ticonderoga, he held it along with the Green Mountain Boys and Ethan Allen. Number 3, what did he try to do and George Washington would not let him? A, resign or quit, B, run for president, or C, nothing. He tried to A, resign. He tried to quit his post after he did not make major general. And George Washington wouldn't let him. George said, no, you're one of my best generals, you're going to stay. And George regretted that later.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 4, what did Arnold become for the British? A, John Hancock and Samuel Adams, B, a prisoner, or C, a spy? He became a spy for the British because they were paying him lots of money. He was making money outside, and he was getting his respect, or he thought he was at first, until he switched sides totally. Then they didn't trust him.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
It was a spy. Number 5, who was helping Arnold spy? Who was the chief of the British spies? It was A, Major Andre, B, no one, or C, Miss Sharon. It was A, Major Andre.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
And that is all. That was all for Benedict Arnold. We'll be back next time. We're talking about spies in general. All right. Like usually when we're in class, I have some invisible ink, some other stuff we do stuff with, but I don't have all that this time online. But be sure you go on here, go on Schoology. You go through this, you answer the questions again, and you turn it in so you get credit. And I will see you next time when we'll be talking about spies. I'll have a good day.